Hello, I'm Eric Smith. Welcome again to People and Politics. This is our new edition, the new People and Politics, available on YouTube. We hope you'll tell all of your friends about it. Important times in Jacksonville. This is right on to August the 30th, when there'll be an important election here in Jacksonville. And I've asked as our first guest a good friend and a long-time, very good public servant, the Honorable John Crescent-Benny, who is our new Vice President of the City Council. And John, welcome to People and Politics.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
May I call you Councilman?
You may.
Very
Call
good.
me anything.
Very, very good. And have over the years.
Yes, you have,
Vice
as a matter of
versa.
fact.
Okay. It's good to have you on this first program that we've done. I've got a good feeling that this is where we need to be for not only the future, but for millennials, to interest younger people.
I would agree. I think that online media is a whole new world, and that's where everybody's tuning into now. So,
now, you were elected barely 2 months ago as Vice President of the Jacksonville City Council by your colleagues, and of course Ms. Lori Boyer, a fine lawyer and fine council person, as the council president. How does it feel to be vice president, and how do your duties change from being an at-large councilman and committee chair like you were?
well, I think traditionally a council vice president tries to support the agenda of the council president, and as luck would have it, I'm serving with a council president that's extremely ambitious and has charted a course over the next 10 months remaining in her council presidency to accomplish a lot of objectives. So it's probably busier than I anticipated, but it's all for a good cause, and anything I can do to support her and help her accomplish those objectives, I'm here to help.
Now, see if I'm going in the right direction. If I could describe her in one word, it's oversight.
That's a good word, but she is so amazing that I think limiting a description to one word is shortchanging her efforts. I describe her as the Energizer Bunny on steroids, because she is like she's more than a full-time council member. I put in a lot of hours, but she's usually here when I come in the morning, and she's many nights here when I leave at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And she digs into things. She, if a question pops up while she's dealing with an issue, she's not going to let go until she gets an answer. And I'm a little bit like that, but she takes it to a new level. She's very detailed oriented.
Well, the reason I used oversight is that is one of the major jobs of a legislative body. And over the years, and you'll know this, there have been very few councils that seem to have the time, or more importantly, take the time to look back at the government to find out how agencies are working, how taxes are working, how the Public Works Department is working. But she's shown a willingness to really dig in. One example was the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, which hasn't been used or noticed for years. And she was kind enough to ask me to testify about that in front of the Consolidation Review Committee, which she so aptly chaired.
Yeah. Well, the City Council is much like a board of directors for a company or a not-for-profit organization. Probably more people have experience serving on boards of directors for not-for-profit organizations, but our main role is to set goals and objectives for the city, financial oversight. A lot of times we find ourselves getting into dealing with specific problems that really and truly are the responsibility of the executive branch, but if those problems or the resolution of those problems breaks down on the executive side, the mayor's side of the organizational chart, citizens often feel frustrated or helpless, and they will call council members to intervene, and we do that on occasion, but typically we're here for the big picture, setting goals, objectives, budgets, where we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of research, not only to move forward, but as council members come and go because of term limits, a new council member not only has to do homework about where to go in the future, they've got to do homework about where we've been in the past to help determine that course for the future, because they may not have the institutional knowledge that someone like myself or other council members that have done multiple tours of duty here have.
I don't know whether you know this or whether you noticed, and I doubt if many of you have noticed, it is almost the 200th anniversary of the city of Jacksonville.
It is. In fact, I mentioned that at a council meeting a couple months ago. I think it was like we're at 194 or something, 192 of the founding of the town of, or the city of Jacksonville by Isaiah Hart. Yep, I mentioned
Well,
that.
2022 would be the
Yeah, it was 2022, right? So I
and-
think we're 6 years out. So
and you got to wonder what we're doing to prepare for that. That should be an awesome
be.
celebration. It
should
should
be.
be a week-long celebration or more in the city of
well,
Jacksonville.
we did a pretty good job celebrating the 450th anniversary of the founding of Fort Caroline a few years back. So I think we'll be all right on celebrating
I
the
remember
200th
that.
anniversary of the city of
I
Jacksonville.
do remember that. August the 30th, Tuesday, a not only congressional election, state attorney, public defender, and so on, legislative races will be perhaps not decided, but at least go into a runoff. But the compelling issue is the referendum about the extension of the Better Jacksonville tax. Not totally without controversy. You were part of a year in, year out process to try to help the pensions, for which I congratulate you, but somehow that did not ripen until Mayor Lenny Curry came up with a plan, presented it to you and the city council, and it passed 19 to zip. Democrats, Republicans, people of all persuasions. What's your take on that? How we got to this point?
Well, we have a pension problem, and it's very complex. It's probably the most complex problem I've ever dealt with in my 16 years of combined service on the council. It's a problem that I've pretty much focused on intensely since coming back to the council in 2008, and it's a difficult one to explain to people how we got into the mess we're in, and conversely, it's difficult to explain in a 30-second TV commercial or a postcard or a 2-minute telephone call with a constituent how we need to get out of this problem. But
Suppose I give you another 20 minutes.
well, the most important thing on the ballot on August 30th, in my opinion, is the extension of the BJP half-cent sales tax. It requires voters' approval because it may not be a great plan, it may not even be a good plan, but it's the only plan that we've been able to get our hands on at this point. Now, a couple of years ago, we looked at trying to partner with other cities and counties in the state of Florida that were also in similar pension predicaments, and going to the state and tried to see if we could get them to implement a local option sales tax that would require voter approval specifically to pay down unfunded liability on pension plans. It was something that had never been discussed before at the state level. If you look through the statute with regard to local option sales taxes, all but one are for capital investment, buildings, roads, libraries, not for operational expenses like paying down a pension debt. And we didn't get a very good reception, not only from our competing cities or similar fated cities who thought that that would be just a hill that couldn't be climbed. Our own delegation members were like, that's never going to happen. I mean, Tallahassee is very anti-tax, and so we kind of backed away from that. When Mayor Curry was elected, he brought to the table a skill set that wasn't available to us prior to him becoming the mayor, and that was deep-rooted contacts and relationships in Tallahassee. And he went over there and used a lot of political capital and exploited those relationships and brought home something for us to work with. The biggest complaint I get from citizens is that the tax won't start until 14 years from now, or up to 14 years from now. I agree, I'd like it to start on January 1st of 2017, but that's not what Tallahassee gave us. I can't do it without Tallahassee giving me the tool to do it with. They gave us a tool, and they said it starts after the BJP tax is paid off. So that's all I've got. Like I said, it's not the best plan in the world, but it's the only plan. Trust me, I've been here since 2008 working on this issue. I've looked at a variety of proposals, and this is the best thing I've seen. I wish it could be better, but it isn't. I don't have the power to make it better. Sales tax referendum are strictly the power and the authority of the Florida legislature, and this is what they've given us, and it's the best thing that we've got to date.
You know, I remember walking the halls in Tallahassee, when the legislature was in session, which I do with some frequency, having been a member of the House of Representatives, and talking to people, and including our own delegation, and they just didn't think it was going to happen. They said they'd work hard to make it happen, and I talked to our lobbyists, and everybody had their fingers crossed, and I think Mayor Curry, frankly, exhausted every favor he ever had coming, and
I think you're right. It was
and got a few in advance.
We were told a couple of years before that it would be a hill that couldn't be climbed, and he was able to do it. And I mean, he put a lot of time in. I commend the mayor for putting the hours in to make this happen. So in absence of this being approved, we're right back to square one with no readily viable options. A lot of citizens suggest an increase in the millage rate. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible, but unlike what's before them on August 30th, the sales tax referendum requires certain things to happen before we can even collect this tax. It requires existing pension funds to be closed. It requires union employees to contribute 10% of their wages to the existing plan as opposed to 8% today. In the absence of those things being accomplished, we can't collect the surtax. And the most important thing it provides is that if we do collect the surtax, the sales tax, we can't spend one penny of that on anything other than paying down the pension obligation. That doesn't hold true for a millage rate increase. I could raise taxes by a mill, 2 mills, 3 mills, and sure, this council that approved the millage rate might say we're going to use all that incremental revenue to pay down the unfunded liability, but what happens when the next council comes in, or the council after that? They're not obligated to use it for pension liability. I have no legal ability to tie any portion of a millage to a specific expenditure. That's a decision that's made by the city council year in and year out through the budget process. So, in my opinion, a millage rate is a crapshoot. Yeah, we might be able to control it while we're here, but no guarantee to control it beyond the terms of the existing council members.
Well, you don't have to look very far back in history to see what that's all about, or to have a precedent, because when you and I were on the council together as late as 1999, we had created a serious vehicle replacement fund
Right.
for police and fire
That's right.
vehicles. We'd created hurricane emergency funds, and I noticed about 3 years after I left that the next administration, no, it was a little further than that. I think it was in the first 2 years of the Payton administration, there were some real budget issues, so they spent that one-time money.
Right.
Nothing against Mayor Payton, but they spent the money.
Spent the one-time money, and then when I came back in 2008, we weren't paying for vehicles through cash on hand that we'd essentially amortized to replace a vehicle with. We were putting them on essentially, we call it the banking fund, but it's essentially a credit card. And some of those credit card debts were for longer periods than the asset was going to live. It was crazy. We're trying to get away from that. We're still using the banking fund. We've made some inroads, but it would be nice to get back to what you're describing is planning ahead, putting aside money, and that council saw the benefit of that, but a subsequent council under some budget pressures spent the money on other things other than buying vehicles.
So there's two scenarios here. One is voters decide by 50% plus one to approve, and I know you're for it, and I'm for it also, the mayor's referendum. With that, I think once the actuaries work through the numbers on what happens with an infusion of money down the road, that has an impact on what happens right now, on keeping the debt from galloping, and perhaps freeing up the ability to acquire some more dollars for things like a desperately hurting fire department, the need for more police officers, the need for
Absolutely.
paving streets and so on.
Absolutely.
But lest I go on, let's talk to the knowledgeable one.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that this may take some pressure off current or immediately forthcoming budgets to allow us to use some differential revenue instead of sending it to the police and fire pension fund or the city's employee pension fund or the correctional officers pension fund. We could perhaps restore library hours that have continued to remain cut from 4 or 5 years ago, hire new police officers, try to catch up on road resurfacing and other capital maintenance projects that we've foregone at the expense of the detriment of the building or whatever they're associated with because we couldn't afford it.
Victim services, children's services.
It's a long list, Eric. It's a long list. And so if it doesn't pass on August 30th, we don't get that 50% plus one, we're right back to where we are today, and we're going to be looking at some, I think we're going to, somebody asked me today, what's Plan B? I think Plan B is expect further degradation of city services, budget cuts, because I cannot avoid paying the pension liability. That's one of the first things by statute that comes off the top of the cake, so to speak. And there's just not going to be enough cake left to continue to do the things we're doing now, which presently is below the levels of service we were providing 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, in Washington, there's a constant debate over a balanced budget. Here, in local government, we're required by our Constitution to have a balanced budget. You
Florida
can't borrow.
Constitution requires all municipal or county governments, the state of Florida, expenditures have to equal revenues. They can't exceed that. You can have less expenditures than revenues and put that into a cash reserve or an emergency fund or something, but you can't spend more than what you're taking in.
Okay, let's go back to scenario two.
Wouldn't that be a nice
two.
rule for Congress?
It would be.
Yes, it would be.
There's an idea on my next
Maybe
campaign for Congress.
we'll put that on the next ballot.
Right. But in scenario B, if you will, the referendum doesn't pass, even by one vote if it just didn't pass. Then you have to go back. There's going to be, one way or the other, the need for more revenue. That leaves you with the only thing you can do is the property tax.
Right.
And let's assume that the mayor and the council don't want to do that property tax. Several years down the road, you just don't have the money. You can't go bankrupt because the state of Florida will make you raise millage. And Jacksonville, to its credit, is one of the lower taxed millage-wise in the state of Florida. I mean, this 7.5 mills, I think, 8.5 mills, still on the table that could be collected.
But remember now, I try to remind people that we have consolidated government here, and one of the benefits of consolidated government is a citizen not having to pay taxes to a county sheriff and a city police department, taxes to a county road department and a city streets and highways division. We're supposed to be operating more efficiently, which is supposed to translate into operating a lower cost. So just because we have a lower tax rate is not anything embarrassing or terrible. We're supposed to have a lower tax rate because unlike anywhere else in Florida, we have consolidated government. We have citizens paying one time for a service like libraries or police or fire or road maintenance. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And so our current millage rate right now is $11.44. So every $1,000 of value on every $1,000 of taxable value on somebody's property, they're going to pay the city $11.44. They also pay a school book tax and a Florida Inland Navigation tax and a few others, but they're paying the city $11.44. But let me remind you that in 2007, the legislature mandated that the city of Jacksonville roll back their tax rate. So we had a rollback, and in order to make up that revenue, Mayor Payton at the time implemented 3 fees: a garbage fee, a stormwater fee, and a 3% tax on your JEA bill. In next year's budget, the revenue from those three fees will exceed $100 million. If you divide that into what we're charging for mills, it's equal to 2.1 mills. So technically, our tax rate is not really 11.4, it's 13.5, because that money used to be collected via property tax. The legislature made us roll back, so we went to these alternate fees. But technically, I mean, we used to pay for garbage service out of property taxes. We used to pay for stormwater maintenance out of property taxes, and the JEA fee was just created to close that gap. So that's $100 million, more than $100 million, that we're collecting from alternate sources to fund things that we used to collect or we used to fund from property taxes. So you have to look at that too. You can't look at our 1144. You have to factor in that 100 million plus coming in from those three fees that were implemented in 07.
You know, this city's never been one to really jump on taxes. We were absolutely the last, by at least 10 years, county in the state of Florida to levy the garbage tax. We actually, it came out of the garbage trucks rolled out of the general fund, and
right.
then when we did levy it, Mayor Hazuri asked us to repeal it.
Which happened.
It happened. So, but Mayor Payton was, and you on the council, you were absolutely up against the wall. You had to do
I was
something.
not on the council, but they were up against the wall.
It seems to me you've been there for
the
life.
The state was saying, listen, you can no longer collect this much money in taxes. You have to lower your tax rate. So how do you continue to fund fire services at the same level? How do you continue to fund police services at the same level? How do you continue to maintain your roads? We need to spend $12 million a year resurfacing roads in order to get through all of them by the time the first one is ready to be resurfaced again. We've been in recent years down to $2 million. So the next year, I'm not at 12, I'm at 22, because I got to take the 10 that I didn't do this year and add it to my deficit, and those deficits have continued to grow on a lot of things, roads, building maintenance, etc. So that was a terrible thing that happened in 07, and the three fees were the vehicle to get us out of that predicament.
So let's suppose, as a hypothetical, somebody lives in Atlantic Beach, one of those people that are living the dream, that hate to come across the ditch, and you happen to be talking to them, and they say, look, what's in it for me? Our pension fund's okay down here with our police department. Why should we vote for that?
They're part of our county, and I find it hard to believe that they would never leave that side of the ditch. They probably come to the stadium for a football game, or the arena for a concert, or a restaurant in Riverside, etc. And they're using services that the county provides. We provide the library service at the beach. So they're part of our community, and in the absence of that, in the absence of supporting the referendum, they're going to see those services degrade, because budget cuts are going to be a guarantee going forward, because pension costs are scheduled to increase and revenues are increasing because of added value in real estate, but they're not creeping up at the same level as the pension costs. So in the absence of them supporting it, they're going to see a degradation in county services, city services that I know they're enjoying. They cross the ditch. They're not hermits.
If somebody needs to chat with you before the election, you really are, and I'm not saying this gratuitously, this guy is one of the most accessible governmental officials you'll find at any level of government. And you save the taxpayers over $100,000 a year by doing all your own work. You don't have a receptionist except maybe the one up front. You don't have a legislative
That's true.
assistant.
But I as I'm working my way into succeeding Ms. Boyer as council president, it will be absolutely necessary that I have some help. So I am starting to think about hiring.
No surprise there.
So,
The president has to have someone.
Serving as the vice president has been challenging enough on many a day when I've said, gosh, I wish I had somebody here to help me. But since 2008, for about 8 years, I have not had an ECA, but that probably will be changing shortly.
You would think that one of these colleges or universities would want you to have a couple of interns that would work for free just for the experience.
We had an intern here from, what's that school in Tallahassee? I forgot what the.
University of Florida.
We had an intern
Oh,
over the
the
summer
other school.
that was helping us, and I leaned on her for a couple of research projects, and she did a pretty good job. She just went back last week. I was sorry to see her go, but
That's
yeah, you're
excellent.
right. We can. There's resources out there that are available that wouldn't cost the taxpayer anything. Unfortunately, interns from college usually are more available in the summer season as opposed to the winter, spring, or fall, winter, spring seasons when they're attending classes.
So accessibility comes with a phone number and an email address. I know you're at jrc@coj.net.
That's correct. I've
I
got
don't
the
know whether we
easiest
have-
email in the whole city.
I don't know
My
whether we have
initials.
graphics here, but in case we don't, jrc@coj.net. And guess what, folks? He answers his own email. It doesn't hit another set of eyes. And
You're right.
you don't use your home server and all that kind of thing.
I don't. Well, I do respond to email from home, but it's a little different than using a home server.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my phone number is 630-1381.
630-1381. What's it like to work with Mayor Curry? I know one of your beefs, and I think it was legitimate, with the former mayor is that you just didn't get any FaceTime or enough. Most of the council didn't seem to be able to talk to him much for whatever reason. Is it different with Lenny Curry? Can you walk just? You're 100 feet from his office.
Yeah. Well, under Mayor Brown, we have this hallway here that joins the mayor's office.
Yeah.
The door to the mayor's office got locked, so we had to go around and check in like anybody else, and so that's different. For day one, Mayor Curry reopened the travelway between the council office and the mayor's office, and I've probably seen Mayor Curry more times in the past 12 months, or how long has he been here? 13 months, than I did Brown in 4 years. He's very accessible. He's got a lot of energy himself. He's young, very passionate about where he wants to take this city, and I'd give him an A+ on his relationship with the council at the moment. Now, that can always change going forward. You never know. Mayors' relationships with the council can sometimes go up and down, but I'm pleased, and I'm a tough critic, so I'm happy with the first 13 months.
And nobody could argue with you being a tough critic. You certainly are. And
Some
that's
people
a good
might, but they'd lose the argument.
thing. That's a good thing. The Democratic Party, you and I are both Democrats, and I think there are probably maybe 3 or 4 other Democrats on the city council. We've both endorsed the mayor's plan, Jacksonville's plan. Jacksonville's plan, yes to Jacksonville, for Jacksonville, for the referendum. And does it give you any level of discomfort when the Democratic Party here calls a press conference and says this is a bad thing, there's something better out there, kill this, let's wait for something better?
I have to tell you, I was surprised to see that happened. I didn't have any advance notice that was happening. Somebody called me the morning of saying, "Did you hear?" And I was like, "No, I hadn't heard," because nobody reached out to me. I'm disappointed. I wasn't part of the meeting that led to that decision to take that position, so I'm not sure what the debate was centered around. But we had a press conference here, or the mayor held a press conference in the atrium on Monday at noon.
I was there, I saw
you.
you.
You were there, and I think most of my colleagues were there. So, we voted unanimously to put this on the ballot, on the August 30th ballot. And if there was anybody absent Monday, it wasn't more than a couple of council members. I think most everybody showed up, and we're standing with the mayor in continued support of this being the right thing to do. And hopefully we'll have success on Tuesday, and we can start moving forward.
The one study I haven't seen is what would happen if the referendum did not pass and we waited for the moons to try to align to come up with some plan to get some revenue to make this work. even if they went back to pension obligation bonds or something created with the JEA or whatever. I don't see anything like that happening for a couple of years.
No, I mean, I don't either. And what I do see happening is the continued growth of the pension obligation putting so much pressure on the budget that we're going to have to reduce services. Now, I don't know if that translates into retracting library hours again or what that translates into, but as that pension obligation continues to increase, if there's not any way to deal with that, it's going to put pressure on the budget, and that pressure is going to have to be relieved by some sort of reduction in city service. Could be libraries, could be layoffs of employees. This is the only option.
It's kind of hurtful that we have arguably the largest park system of any municipality in the country, and yet probably the smallest staff. Most of them are totally understaffed or not staffed at all. You can't send your kid to a park after school and have some supervised program.
Right.
And it's a that's a shame. It's a shame that we still have promises made by consolidation that have not been fulfilled, areas of Jacksonville that are neglected. And it seems to me this referendum is a first step.
It's a first step, and I think the mayor's taken a recent step we just approved some legislation at our council meeting 2 days ago to start phasing out septic tanks. I mean, that was a promise that was made prior to the adoption of consolidation. Yeah. And here's the mayor stepping up. It's in order to phase, I think we have 58,000 septic tanks that probably need to be phased out eventually. The mayor's put up $15 million out of this year's budget. We've got $15 million being matched by JEA. It's a small drop in the bucket, but at least we're starting. There hasn't been a real focused effort on doing that for years and years and years. So I think the mayor recognizes there are parts of Jacksonville that are challenged. I think he's clearly stated that he wants every zip code to be treated equally, and I think he's taken the steps to make amends and make sure that all zip codes are equal.
In the final moments here, let's get gut level. If the mayor knew me, do you think he would like me?
Do I have to answer that on air?
No, you don't.
I thought the mayor did know you.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but
okay.
I think he's doing a good job. He's doing a good job. But you have to inject a little bit of humor into these programs. It can't be just dry numbers and a bleak view of the future. I think the future looks very bright. It's just a matter of how we come together and get there.
Well, as I said at the outset, this pension is probably the most complex problem the city faces. It's the most complex problem I've dealt with, and if we can start cracking this nut, I think things will really start breaking. I think Jacksonville's I think downtown is on the cusp of a renaissance, and I don't want to borrow that word from Ed Austin's program, but downtown I think is really on the cusp of having a lot of interest in terms of tenants coming to some of our office space, and I think we could see a radical change in downtown if we can just break from this ball and chain that we're tied to on the pension obligation that we haven't been able to do anything with in the past 8 years.
Well, the other thing I want to add is what a great thing it was that Shad Khan came to this city. And Mr. Khan, I know you're not watching this, but I would still make the compliment. In any event, I sure appreciate you being with us today.
Glad to be here.
On this maiden voyage on
good luck
YouTube.
On this new format.
Well, I think if your friends and my friends and their friends pass it along and pass this link along, that we'll bring some good, hard information without commercial interruption, without anything that me trying to trip you up like happens so much in regular TV, and I'm excited about it.
Well,
and again, thank you. That's jrc@coj.net.
Correct.
630-1381. Thank you. And that is a wrap with Councilman John Crescembeni. I'm Eric Smith for People in Politics. Next time you see me, my co-host, Eric Brian Smith Jr., will be with us. Watch us again on YouTube and pass this along. See you soon. God bless.